listening to the Retail Razor Show, where your expert hosts and their guests cut through the clutter in retail and retail tech to shape the future of retail.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 3, Part 1 of the Retail Razor Show. I'm your host, Ricardo Belmar.
And I'm your co-host, Casey Golden. Welcome, Retail Razor Show listeners, to our unapologetically authentic retail podcast for product junkies, commerce technologists, and everybody else in retail and retail tech alike. Now, Ricardo, did I hear you right? You said Part 1?
That's right. This is our special edition episode on Groceryshop. I was fortunate enough to attend the show and managed to sit down live and in person with 6 people to record a few interviews for our listeners.
I wish I could have been there. And that's probably the first time I will admit that I wanted to go to Groceryshop. I hear it was a great show.
It was. It definitely was. Of course, it wasn't as big as ShopTalk, but there were about 4,000 attendees, and I'd say a pretty good percentage of retailers and CPG brands there. That was probably the best grocery shop yet. And we'll hear more about that through some of the interviews too.
So that explains these special episodes and everything. But why Part 1? What's coming up after that?
Well, I did mention 6 interviews. So we're going to stitch these together, 2 interviews at a time in this episode. And then we'll quickly release Part 2 and Part 3 right behind this one with the other interviews. So you get some bite-sized episodes and rapid fire from us.
Awesome. No one's ever accused us of having episodes that are too short. So who do we have lined up for this show?
We are going to jump in to highlight a very cool grocery tech startup that I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the months to come. We'll have Katie Hotze, the CEO of Grocery Shopii. She's amazing, wonderful. Can't wait for everyone to learn more about Katie and what she's doing, helping busy families shop for groceries in a more experiential way, leveraging a never-ending collection of recipes, all while saving you money doing it. I mean, what could be better?
Does she cook?
Almost. Yeah, I guess maybe if they cooked it for you, but
No, I'm all in for startup spotlights and looking forward to that guest. Who's our second guest?
So from there, we are going to jump to an industry analyst perspective. About halfway through Groceryshop, I sat down with good friend Stewart Samuel, global insights leader at IGD, to talk about the trends that were surfacing halfway through the show. We did manage to overcome some kind of annoying technical challenges in the podcast room for this interview with the equipment in the room. But I think we came out with some really good insights for grocers and brands. So, of course, we are going to hear about one of the biggest trends coming out of Groceryshop, retail media networks.
We really nailed that prediction for the year, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And you couldn't walk down a hallway at the show without seeing somebody's branded ad from a retailer promoting their retail media networks. I mean, Walmart Connect was everywhere to the point where I'm not even sure anyone from Walmart was there to actually attend the show. They were there to sell their own retail media services to other retailers.
Wow. Now, wait, you said one of the top trends. What else was trending? Was there something bigger than retail media?
Well, yeah, there were other trends, like convenience, the omnipresent omnichannel that, shows its head at every show. And an oldie but a goodie, personalization. I'm not sure about that one. Maybe grocery industry was just figuring that one out because it's not like we haven't been talking about that one for a while. But for the absolute top trend for that answer, you're just going to have to listen to the interviews. Believe me, Part 2 and Part 3 will be very illuminating. Let's just say we've saved the best for last while sprinkling a few important nuggets here and there along the way, but there'll definitely be some surprises.
Wow, with that kind of setup, this must be the most jam-packed, full of value, hitting you every minute series of episodes we've done. And I can't wait to hear it because I will be hearing it for the first time with our listeners as well. So let's dive in and get right to the live recording, in-person interviews from Groceryshop 2022.
Welcome to the Retail Razor Show special edition episode at Groceryshop 2022. I'm here at the show in Las Vegas with a series of amazing guests as part of our Retail Transformers series to talk all things grocery and consumer goods. And to kick off the series, I'm here with Katie Hotze, the CEO and founder of Grocery Shopii. It's thrilled to have you here, Katie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun.
So to get started, why don't you tell us about yourself and what led you to create Grocery Shopii and give us the background and what Grocery Shopii is all about.
Sure. So myself, I am a digital marketer. And I spent about 18 years in management technology consult. This was an idea that I had off the side of my desk because I was a super busy mom and was trying to figure out how to get the recipe process of finding them and getting the ingredients and having it all in the kitchen at 5:30 on a Tuesday when I roll in hot from work and I've got kids, grabbing my leg, telling me they're starving. And so, there was, I lived in Chicago at the time, and the grocer that, could deliver to the house, I'd open the app or the web browser and would add a couple random items to cart, and I'd never checked out. And so I knew there had to be a better way. And so I ended up creating a prototype myself to do so. So the company evolved over, 2019, 2020. We just really began this journey of figuring out what types of need really existed. Was my need unique? Turns out it's not. And so we've been off to the races, really since 2019, but with the Groceryshop meal planning application since 2020. And we are a digital meal planning application for grocery e-commerce. We actually integrate directly with a grocer's existing e-commerce platform, and we become a connection point to their front-end website. And so we grab approximately 1 out of every 9 shoppers enters into our platform to do meal planning and online grocery shopping in 5 minutes flat. And then, so we get them to and through checkout as fast as possible. And when we do, they come back 4 times as often, and they spend 18 to 30% more per cart.
So I'm sure a lot of people hearing those numbers and listeners are going to say, wow, that's pretty amazing. I have to say, being someone who reluctantly does grocery shopping every week in my household, and particularly I'm one of those people from the pandemic who thoroughly took advantage of online ordering to avoid going to the store. And I have to say, you put a really unique spin on that whole process of, kind of adding a discovery process in my mind, right, to grocery shopping, which I've personally always kind of viewed as a pretty mundane exercise. Most people probably have a list of things that they think they want. They go to the store and shop. And you've added this layer that I think is pretty interesting because you're almost telling everyone to start with what you want to have and then kind of work into or allow through the interface, the grocer kind of provide what you need to do that and then get an order done.
That's the beauty of digital.
Yeah.
You just automate it. And so I think that's what annoyed me the most. I truly, funny story. I was that mom on the playground and my friends would bring me recipes printed out. Spent my whole career in digital. Paper printout. And they go, here are the burritos we make. And here's what da-da-da. I'm like, don't give this to me. I don't have to.
What are you going to do with that paper?
What are you going to do with that piece of paper? And so I think just the natural, design of a piece of tech that explodes to cart, that was not new. A couple of years ago, I was trying to get this off the ground, and I was trying to get a speaking opportunity at a big conference, and I had the head of content call me. He goes, shoppable recipes, nothing new. And I was like, no, but we do it differently because we're not B2C, we're B2B, right? We're a complementary retail application. Right. And, we're like the Starbucks app on your phone. It's got one job. It does it really, really well, right? That's us. We're an incredibly narrow tech platform. We've got one job. And we can work with all the different grocers out there. And it's a very simple process. We can spend, if we're on their e-commerce, if we have the integration written already, it's literally hours to stand them up. If not, it's a couple weeks. So it's a really interesting model, but it's very serving for our end consumer. Like per your example, it exists with reason because there's a 70 to 84% cart abandonment rate with grocery websites. People go there, they're looking at COVID shot links, bakery links, order your flowers for Valentine's Day. The front page of a grocer's website is just cluttered, but people are coming with a very specific purpose. When you're buying ingredients at the grocery store, you're going to mix them together. You're going to make something with them.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of times it takes the person who owns that responsibility in the household, which tends to be north of 90% a woman, who also, our data is agnostic. If you work or if you stay at home, you need to have a solution. And so when we built it with that busy parent in mind.
Well, I think that makes so much sense. And it really adds this almost experiential layer to grocery shopping that I almost feel like it makes it a lot more interesting now as the shopper, because you've got that end goal already in mind and the technology is helping hand that to you.
Yeah, totally. And, the thing about machine learning is when you build a content deployment tool of any sort and you fuel it with ML, you're allowing the code to be written from the moment of first use, and it constantly gets better. And I think that's what's really cool about the way that we personalize the recipes. Every time you go in, you look at fresh recipe content. That's an imperative. That is the secret sauce of making sure that you pull people back over and over again. No one wants to see your stagnant recipe content. those 300 recipes that you've had living on your website since 1995, no one wants to see them. And people go, oh, Katie, we have recipes. No one clicks on them. Yes, I know, because recipe content is deployed every second on Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook.
It gets old quickly. Right?
Yes. I mean, you can't compete with that. Grocers can't compete with that. We have large retailers tell us, like, you mean we can just hand this to you? We don't have to deal with the recipes and you just do it all? Yes, that's what we do. That's all we do. And so it's an interesting model where I didn't realize it was a burden in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think the grocers, particularly the grocers north of like 70, 100 stores, they're the ones that they're just working with food bloggers constantly. And
right.
They are tethered to that blogger. If it is July 4th and they've got to get the July 4th recipes out the door, I'm telling you, that blogger might pop that content back to them at 2:00 and that newsletter hits out at 4:00. And it's just impossible, right? But when you have access to us, you have access to all of our recipe content. You can do a 365-day omnichannel content calendar and deploy it all out there. So it's just an interesting convenience that there's a lot of benefits we didn't see. We came in to solve a problem for the shopper, and it's in the rest. I told everyone from day one, I'm like, the rest will come.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We will never charge that shopper. We will always be free, period. I can't tell you how many times I've been challenged on this.
Really?
Oh, I am the mom. I'm 33. I've had a 25-year career already almost. And it's really important that it stays free. You don't put up paywalls. It's really important that you know what is most important to your shopper. Our shopper is between 25 and 50 years old and has at least one child in the home. Speed is her number one priority. That blows people's minds. And I'm like, oh no, she's looking for healthy diets. Yes, she is. But that is about rank 3 or 4 on the list. Speed is number 1. And so you have to figure out what's most important and you have to answer to that. And I think that's where user feedback comes in and just just the essence of continuing to evolve through the feedback from our super users is really, I think, how we have gotten to where we are today. And I do think that it's different than grocers who are trying to build in-house. And there's a lot behind the curtain.
Right. And you've seen from what I read in one article about one of your customers, it seems that you actually know from the data, when that customer is coming back and you can compare versus someone that's not using the recipe tools. How do their basket size compare? What's their shopping frequency? And you can see the difference.
We follow everything. Yep. And it's quite simple to follow. But yeah, we isolate a retailer, segment the data, make sure you're looking at just accurate local data, right? And they've either accessed our platform or they haven't. And you just map those two fields together. That gives you the chance to realize that like our shoppers, when they play with our recipes, they return to the grocery site 4 times more often than a shopper who does not.
Wow. 4 times more often.
They've never visited our platform before. Yep. Our shoppers have a 4x increase compared to them. Yeah. And I mean, think about like today, I have 6 grocery stores I can drive to any given moment.
Right.
Loyalty is everything right now.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Especially in post-pandemic world. You mentioned online ordering. I just get a chill down my spine if I have to walk in the grocery store.
I do too.
I'm such a brat.
Me too.
And I mean, it's really been disturbing lately. I'll literally pull up in front of the grocery store and go, no. I'm going to go home and do this on my sofa.
Right.
And online ordering in the United States year over year in July increased 17%.
Yeah. Wow.
A year ago, I sat
it's not
at the
going
table.
back.
I've been trying to close deals this whole time. And I sat at the table with retailers and I would have someone look across the table at me and say, online grocery shopping is going to contract. A lot of these grocers, the shoppers are going right back in the store. They're going right back in the store.
Right.
And when you challenge that, it's like, there were people smart enough to sign on with us and light it up. And there are people that have waited and we've closed some of those contracts now that, a year ago, their theory was bust. Online grocery shopping's exploded.
Right. Yeah. No,
busy
I
people
agree.
don't want to go to the store anymore. I don't have 45 minutes to go walk to the store.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, it's not that you may never go back in. It's just that the frequency at which you're going to do that is going to be so much lower than before because you want to take advantage of the convenience factor, but you still want to get the same outcome. And I think that's what's fascinating with what you're doing is you're able to deliver something more than what the customer could get before with that online experience without having to go into the store.
Yes, because you used the word discovery earlier. And I always associate that word with Costco. Just, that's the essence of what they want you to do is go in there and find something new. And the cool thing about recipes is that it's a bundle, but it's also an impulse buy, right? So when you hit that button and explode to cart, there is a computation taking place and the statistical likelihood that you're going to accept that and check out is very, very high. And so what just landed in your cart? Some shoppers care, some shoppers don't.
Right.
Listen,
Right.
if you fit into our target persona, you do not care what brand those diced tomatoes are. Just put them in the cart. That's why we fill primarily with private label. It's very important as part of our
Which
effort.
has a margin impact for the grocer.
Yes, but it also keeps the recipes nice and inexpensive for the shopper.
Right.
Again, we're always shopper first.
Right.
Everything that we
Right.
do, we have to reverse, sometimes go behind the curtain, figure out how it's going to work, from a revenue standpoint. But it is imperative that the shopper wins and low price wins every time. Getting the acceptance of the recipes as they move to cart.
Well, this has really been fantastic and just fascinating talking with you, Katie. I know we're going to be seeing and hearing a lot more about grocery shopping with the kind of trends that I expect to see here this week at Grocery Shop. For listeners, if they want to get in touch with you, learn more about Grocery Shopii, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? Sure.
Me personally, my LinkedIn is always open. I check my DMs every day. So Katie H. Hotze on LinkedIn. For the company, groceryshopii.com. It's groceryshopii.com. We have a contacts page. When you fill out that contact form, it tends, depending on what your category is, comes straight to me. And so we love hearing from people. We love being able to follow up, whether it's clients, partnerships, et cetera.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining me, Katie. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate this. I enjoyed this.
Welcome to the Retail Razor Show special edition episode at Grocery Shop 2022. I'm here at the show in Las Vegas, continuing our series of amazing retail transformers to talk all things grocery and consumer goods. And today I'm here with Stewart Samuel, Global Insight Leader for IGD. Stewart, we've known each other for a while now, and we seem to often run into each other at these conferences all the time. I'm just thrilled to have you on the show today.
Yeah, hi, Ricardo. It's great to be here and really excited to share some thoughts with you today.
Well, let's start by having you give us some of your background and what you do at IGD.
Yeah, so I've been at IGD quite a long time, actually, last 17 years. Probably the last 12, 13 years tracking developments in the US market, and more recently leading our global insight team. So looking at trends, innovations, what does the future of commerce look like? What does the store future look like over the next sort of 3 to 5 years, and then that work out maybe over the next 5 to 10 years.
So you are really in a pretty unique position, I'd say, in your role to see firsthand what the impact is of all the latest trends and across grocery, CPG. What have you seen? We're about halfway through this week's Grocery Shop. What are you seeing so far? What are you most excited about? What are you hearing?
Yeah, it's been interesting over the last sort of day and a half, the amount of times that retail media has been discussed. Definitely.
Of course.
I see you sort of nodding away there. It's been a very hot topic. And I think I was in the session with Samuel earlier this morning, and they talked about their new platform that's coming. I love the fact they're calling it Gulp, which is kind of...
That's great. That's great.
It's probably the best name of it. Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic. And it's one we've been watching and I've seen it a little bit as well. And I think it's going to be interesting. We work with retailers and manufacturers, and when you're seeing so many of these platforms being launched, I think what's going to be interesting from a manufacturer point of view is how do you prioritize, how do you invest, how do you benchmark these different platforms? Because suddenly, there's probably 15 to 20 of these up and running in the US right now. How do you allocate resources? How's
right.
Where to focus in on? So yeah, that's definitely been a hot topic that I've heard a lot about. Personalization, the P word has come back.
Of course, it's back.
It kind of disappeared for a while, right? And, I think, it's kind of linked a little bit to the retail media, the ability to, really deliver that personalization at scale in digital. I think we're a long way away from maybe get to true personalization, but it's more about contextual and relevant, experiences online. Omnichannel is still growing strong, and I think sort of what we've seen over the last couple of years is come to life at this conference that most retailers now accept that omnichannel is the best way forward. It's where the most profitable customers kind of sit for the retailers. So a lot of focus on those 3 areas in particular.
Yeah, lots to cover there. So I'm going to go back to the first one on retail media only because we've talked about retail media quite a bit on our show. It was one of our big bets or big predictions for the year that it was just going to be one of the great hot topics. And I think one of the things that struck me here at Grocery Shop is, as soon as you come in, if you judge just by all of the branded advertising you see all over the hall, you would think that everything about the show is retailers who want to sell retail media to brands just from all the signage that I see over.
Yeah, there's definitely a strong presence. I think that the leaders, Walmart and Amazon, they're forth. They have some great stands. They have a strong presence and really sort of pushing their digital platforms. I think what's also interesting from those organizations, just kind of making the topic a little bit, they're actually here to sell their tech. I've seen them on the Commerce Lounge and stand, Amazon has just walked up group here as well. So these retailers are really sort of expanding their reach in that sort of digital and technical world into other retail organizations as well. Yeah, but coming back to retail media, it's going to be, for all the retailers, they're seeing it as an answer to the e-commerce profitability. How can we make money from all this delivery and pick up what we're doing in our stores? And I think suddenly the light bulb has gone off with a lot of companies to say, hey, there's a really high margin product here that we can make a lot of money out of, and it can sort of offset some of those additional costs. Actually, it can also help e-commerce business as well, because it can drive on scale through that channel for the retailers. But it's definitely an interesting topic.
And it really seems to me to be a natural fit for grocery.
Yeah, I think so. Just because of the number of touch points that, people have every day. So, people are typically, interacting with food 20 to 25 times a week. And we know that people aren't just ordering once a week anymore for grocery deliveries. And even when they are doing one large grocery delivery, they're actually building that order 3 or 4 times at different points during the week on different devices. So there's eyeballs online so many times that I think for the CVG partners, it's just a great opportunity to get their brands in front of consumers. And I guess what's made a true test is how relevant those ads can be. But to your point, for grocery retail specifically, those with the loyalty programs, the ability to have a closed loop and really sort of show the ROI to the advertisers is such a strength that maybe doesn't exist in other channels yet as well.
And do you see with the grocery, particular retail media networks, it seems to me there's a better opportunity perhaps than in other retail segments to have that closed loop data capability, either because of the loyalty programs or just different ways that grocers have to collect data about their customers over the lifetime, because they have such a regular recurring relationship with the customers. Or maybe other retail segments, it's much more sporadic in their interaction with customers. So it seems like the opportunity to deliver on that ROI, to your point, back to the brand, should be better in a grocery retail media network.
Yeah, I think in terms of vertical, grocery is probably better positioned than others. Yeah, just the frequency of interaction, just the amount of data that the retailers already have on their to align that with the ads they're serving up. So you can sort of show an ad to and provide that consumer is logged in on the system, the changes on cookies and things, part of the loyalty program. They can then say to the advertiser, hey, we showed this person this ad, and this is what that person then went on to do, either in store or online. And that's really powerful, and particularly with the limitations that's going to come with it. I think that even is research in a better position, and they can really make the case that, advertiser that's rather than going to a third party platform.
Have you seen in the discussions here this week on retail media, connecting the dots, so to speak, between the focus on the e-commerce side of the business, but also bringing that retail media network in store?
Not yet, but it's definitely something that we've seen it happen in store. So Amazon's a good example of the Amazon Fresh stores. And those stores, there's a lot of digital screens up in those stores, and obviously serve other retailers like Walmart have had the sort of channels in their store for a long time. There's a lot more they can do in store as well. It doesn't have to be just digital stuff. It can be something simple as like float stickers.
Right, yeah.
Creating bigger events in store as well. But I think over time, I think that will more some change. And right now, the big focus is on serving those digital ads.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be an opportunity to expand that out into the physical store as well.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense. Do you see a tie-in with things like electronic shelf labels?
Yeah, Kroger's tried that before.
Mm-hmm.
They had the stuff where, depending how far away you were from the shelf,
right,
the ad would change. So,
right.
If they picture message from far away, and the closer you got to the shelf,
more narrow, more specific.
Yeah, more narrow, and giving a more contextual message. So I think there's opportunity there. There is a significant cost with that type of setup as well, and people do it largely across the whole store. We have seen some tests with promotional ends being digitized on certain categories, having digital boards, but Asda in the UK has done some of that. So I think over time, but in terms of digitizing the whole sort of store shelf strips, probably just a cost internal.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, I think, on the cost, especially if you think about, we're talking about large physical spaces, a lot of ground to cover with that. But I think maybe at the same time, this kind of goes to your second trend about the personalization is back, right? And we're talking more again about how to personalize. I heard at least one, maybe two different brands talk about earlier today, just how personalization is just table stakes. You have to be doing this now. And it made me think, I think we've heard that before too in past events like this, but there seems to be a different kind of context to it. And maybe it's because of the retail media networks where you obviously want to leverage that personalization, but maybe there's something else happening, I think, that's causing this to be more important than we used to talk about it.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's kind of sort of, pre-pandemic is being talked about quite a bit. And then the pandemic came and it was like, oh, it's just sell everything.
Right. They got other priorities.
Kind of sort of just off the radar. So I agree. The retail media is one aspect, which is enabling more contextual ads to be served up. And it is a form of personalization. I think the other thing as well is changing expectations, particularly younger consumers on mobile devices as well. I think sort of it's much easier to deliver that personalized experience through a mobile device. And also younger consumers are spending more and more time on those mobile devices.
Yeah, no, I agree that makes sense. So, and again, that sort of ties into the third trend that you highlighted, which, for most of us would say, well, it's not a new trend, but it's kind of back again in this space, and that's being more omnichannel.
Yeah, it's definitely not a new trend, right? Yeah, it seems to be that just all those other elements coming together, retail media, visualization. I think sort of retailers also, the cost challenge they've had with e-commerce, the work they've put in over the last few years to add more capacity. We've seen a bit of leveling off of growth in e-commerce this year. I think all the factors coming together that retailers are now really sort of refining and fine-tuning really for online orders and returns. And I was just in a new Target store in New York last week, and they have a whole bank of checkouts and registered for selling stuff, and then a whole other bank of checkouts and desks just for collecting online orders. So retailers are feeding into the spaces. I think sort of pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, there wasn't like a ton of thought into sort of how much space is needed for this stuff, how we're going to sort of set up the customer service aspect. There's more capacity in the market, there's more competition. The retailers are really sort of running in that service element. So, when a customer comes to the store, how quickly can we serve that customer? And by having that sort of staging space set up, really close to store entrance, having a team that's there. And I think that's where retailers are now focusing on the omnichannel. The systems are set up, the processes are set up, the tech is there, the infrastructure is there.
That makes sense. Finding the right ways to optimize, to start making all of these things more profitable and more consistent, I would say, probably for that customer experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, a lot of retailers have scaled up a lot during the pandemic. And whilst, maybe the growth is slow this year, the penetration for most retailers is significantly above where it was pre-pandemic. So it's a bigger part of the business. It's a bigger potential, churn for the business. They really need to get it right and fine-tuning, looking at the fulfillment models to get it gets to scale. Do we need a dark store? Do we need a store environment? Do we need something away from the store? So all the things are sort of what I see it being looked at in a lot of detail.
One of the things that I guess strikes me with that is maybe I'd describe it as, well, I'll put it, I know I heard this in a couple of sessions today where there's the ongoing debate of, which of these, trends during pandemic are lasting today and beyond. We saw that the large increases in online and e-commerce for grocery, and then there's been sort of a leveling off. And I've heard a couple different viewpoints in sessions today on people expressing their thoughts as to, is that level going to now level off and stay at that rate? Or are we just going to see a slowdown in the increasing rate year over year of this, but it's still always going to be a significant enough proportion of the channel mix that, we need to find ways to be better at omnichannel?
Yeah, definitely the data we have at IGD shows incremental growth to come. Definitely growth is slowing this year. Probably for a lot of countries, it will be pretty flat this year compared to last year. But going forward, we've seen some good health of growth, including here in the US. And again, a lot of consumers have tried e-com for the first time during the pandemic.
Right.
A lot of those have converted to being regular customers. There's also more capacity coming on stream, so more opportunities for shoppers to order. I'm also, I was just in the DoorDash section seeing sort of there's more, more missions being served, so going more up for convenience.
Right.
Which actually enabling large grocers to do that. So people like Albertsons in the US, Lovelock in Canada, who don't have convenience format stores.
Right.
But now through their partnership with DashMart, to actually serve that
convenience customer.
Yeah. And that's bringing a different type of offer. Some of the stuff we're seeing on experimentation around live streaming and social commerce, TV commerce.
Right.
This kind of idea of what is always on shopping.
Right.
Yeah, and lots of new pilots and tests being announced this week. And all those, we've just sort of underpinned that growth.
Yeah. What do you see happening from your perspective on grocery with live stream. And Walmart made a big announcement this week with Firework, right? And teaming up on live streaming. And I find that's an interesting topic. I mean, I generally for retail, I'm a big proponent of live streaming taking off, maybe not in the same way that it did in China and throughout Asia, a little differently here. But I'm curious what you think that the angle is in the grocery segment for live streaming.
Yeah, I'm a big fan actually of Firework. I think they're doing some great stuff and some of the pilots with Albertsons and others with Walmart. I think there's a huge opportunity with food retailers to keep people in their own ecosystems, if you like. So rather than going to maybe TikTok for a recipe inspiration, actually can we have that kind of content on our platform? And actually, can we set it up in a way that is user-generated content?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Let's see the G coming into just some branded content or retailer created content. But I think what I expect to see is that more of that user generated content sitting on the visual sites. Yeah, I'm with you. I think live streaming is an opportunity in this market. I think it's a slow burn though. I think it will be different to what happened involved in Asia. But I think there is an opportunity that just because I think the appetite for that kind of, real-time video-based content is huge and it's flowing with us consumers. And so I think over time, there'll just be an expectation that they can sort of tap into that type of content to actually experience that on the retailer platform.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then kind of keep owning that relationship versus giving up that relationship to the social media platform.
Exactly. Yeah. But it is interesting they are making their products available through those different platforms. Right. As well. So that's kind of like covering all bases.
It is, right? I guess it sort of plays into their whole omnichannel plan, right? Is to be everywhere in a sense. I know there was a session earlier I was in that the president of Campbell Snacks gave an example of a campaign they did on TikTok that generated 10 billion views on just over
3 days.
Over 3 days on just how many goldfish can you hold in your hand? Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, we know that particularly on TikTok, there is opportunities to go viral. Very quickly, and particularly I think when they're imaginative, when they're around some of those, I wouldn't say nostalgia brands, but those well-known brands. And see all the Oreo campaigns, they've gone viral, they've done really well. I think it's been really interesting actually to see a lot of traditional brands tap into those new mediums quite a big way. Because sometimes you'd expect that maybe it would be some of the newer challenger startup brands that would be sort of up the premium space, but we've seen it from people like Crapper, from Mondelez.
All the traditional brands.
All the traditional brands do a really good job in that space.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that's the last thing I want to ask you. Is there anything that strikes you as interesting that's not being talked about so far this week?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I haven't heard a lot about is two things that we are sort of very much focused on is health and sustainability. It's interesting because when I was before, sustainability was a big issue and it was on the agenda quite a bit. There is a big sort of discussion point right now where does the cost of living crisis sort of pull back on some sustainability focus that a lot of shoppers have, or do they continue to sort of pursue and support those things? So haven't seen a lot in this event yet, but certainly sort of it's one we're watching to see just what happens with a lot of those efforts. Because what's super interesting right now is that a lot of our milestones, Shanta to focus on 2025 and 2030. So 2025 is like
not that far away.
Less than 1,000 days, right? So there's a lot of packaging in this in particular. A lot of quickness retailers have made that. I mean, most retailers are saying to net zero by 24. A little bit longer up. Actually, between 2025 and 2030, there's quite a lot of delivery begin to retailers' ESG reports. I think we will see more coming through and we'll see more activity in that space. I just haven't heard a lot of it here today. And then health is another one sort of, we know it's a big long-term shift in the industry, but again, it's not been much on the agenda. Right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been kind of surprised that we don't see more agenda items on those topics here this week. Well, Stewart, this has been a fantastic discussion. I'm so glad you could take the time to join me today. If listeners want to get in touch with you, follow your work at IGD, learn more about the great data insights you guys have, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, probably connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah, you'll probably see some store photos now and again. And on LinkedIn or my email, which is stewart.samuel@igd.com. And they're happy to talk about the work we do at IGD.
All right, great. Well, thanks again, Stewart, for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo.
We hope you enjoyed our show, and we can't ask you enough to please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts to help us grow and bring you more great episodes. If you don't want to miss a minute of what's next, be sure to smash that subscribe button in your favorite podcast player. And don't forget to check out our show notes for handy links and more deets. I'm your host, Casey Golden.
And if you'd like to learn more about the two of us, follow us on Twitter at KCC and Ricardo_Belmar, or find us on LinkedIn. Be sure to follow the show on LinkedIn and Twitter at Retail Razor, plus our YouTube channel for videos of each episode and bonus content. I'm your host, Ricardo Belmar.
Thanks for joining us.
And remember, there's never been a better time to be in retail if you cut through the clutter. Until next time, this is the Retail Razor Show.